Welcome. My name is Hector Del Castillo, and I'm Chief Product Officer at BoldPM. And today's topic is how to stop confusing predictive, descriptive, and prescriptive analytics. These are all different types of analytics that have been used in the last few years as analytics have been emerging across different types of organizations. And my co-panelist today is Phillip Simulis. He's also the co-organizer for this meetup. And our meetup is Business Intelligentsia DC meetup. And we meet once a month. And before we get started, I just want to do some housekeeping items. When we get before we begin the formal presentation, I'll be asking people, all of you, to actually put yourself on mute, or actually I'll just be muting everybody so that you can only, we can eliminate any background noise, and also only be able to hear myself and Phillip once we get the conversation started. This first portion is interactive, so feel free to ask any questions. So you can keep your mics open as well as your webcams. And I want to make sure that we continue doing introductions as more people arrive. Also, if you encounter any audio issues, you have to usually refresh your browser if you're using your browser to actually join. The best experience with Zoom is when you have the application loaded, installed on your favorite device, whether it's a laptop, tablet, or smartphone. The client, the application works best. It's the best experience that you can have on Zoom. If you happen to be on browser, you might have to do the refresh if you keep on hearing like choppy audio, which sometimes happens as more people join. Just make sure you do a refresh, and or you can come out and then come back in, which is rejoin the meeting. Once you're in, you can actually request to rejoin, and we'll be monitoring that in case you need to drop out and then rejoin. If you are in a noisy environment, just put yourself on mute, or if you're going to be interrupted, just to make sure. But in the meantime, you can keep your mics open if you're in a quiet space. Also, once we begin the conversation, you can submit questions because we usually have a Q&A portion at the end of the discussion, and sometimes we take questions throughout. In our case, in this particular case, you can actually submit questions. We'll be taking them as they come, as time permits, and then we can just cover all the material as well. And we are recording today's session just like we do every single time. We usually will share a playback video, and we usually will send a link where you can actually view the entire video, as well as the slides and anything that comes out of today's discussion as we do. And so you usually will get a link just for those of you who typically would want to review any conversations. You will get a link where you can play back the video and also view all the slides that we're going to be showing today. I also want to give a special thanks and shout out to MakeOffices. MakeOffices is normally where we meet in Tysons and McLean. But since April, we actually have gone 100% virtual, and we've been virtual ever since. And we're probably going to be staying virtual for another some time. And right now, it looks like if we go back to an in-person meetup, it may be a hybrid in the first few sessions anyway. And we don't know when that's going to happen, because right now it looks like it may be the rest of 2020. But we're always going to be announcing ahead of time, at least a month in advance, when we do make any changes. So normally MakeOffices is where we actually meet physically. And BoldPM is my company. Also Beyond typically has been providing us the the Zoom webinar plan, which allows everybody to actually do a webinar, which is different than meetings. We're actually using meetings tonight. And this is our first time using meetings for this particular meetup, but we want to make sure that we continue to have interactivity, especially in the first few minutes of the presentation. Simtelligent is Philip's company. He'll be here, and he's one of my co-panelists today, and he'll be telling you more about Simtelligent. Also, if you're on Twitter, you can actually use these hashtags, hashtag BIDC, which is our meetup hashtag, hashtag meetup, in addition to hashtag predictive analytics, and also hashtag prescriptive analytics. And then mine, you can use my handle, which is HM Del Castillo, or Phillip, which is P Simulis. So those are the two handles and the hashtags to be using for anything that you want to share with your followers. And we'll be more than glad to retweet and share if you do use these particular hashtags. Also, the agenda is usually we will use the first few minutes for networking. We usually will begin the welcome and announcements, and this is the interactive part of the meetup. Then we go into discussion, and then we just continue doing Q&A, and then usually there may be also some back-end networking as well, though we keep the meeting open for anyone who wants to have additional conversations, sideline conversations if needed. So that's the agenda for today. As I mentioned earlier, we've been around for now about 8 years, I want to say. And I've been running this particular meetup now for about half that time, about 4 years now. And we meet every first Thursday of the month. And usually it's the same time and same location. And for more information, this short URL goes directly to our meetup page. So you can view the entire schedule. And our schedule is actually here because I post this usually at the beginning of every year. And then we just maintain it for the rest of the year. So our last meeting was June, and given that 4th of July, the first Thursday was actually that first week of July, we usually skip July because of 4th of July weekend. And then we resume in August, and then we meet all the way through December. And usually our December is more of a social thing because it's more of a holiday type of meetup that we do. We don't necessarily have any content unless we have somebody who's really eager to do something around the first Thursday of December. But this is the schedule for the rest of the year. We'll be meeting again next month, and then October, November, and December. And this whole schedule is already posted, and all the meetups are already in our meetup page. So you can actually RSVP ahead of time if you want and get the reminders that Meetup sends. Also, in this particular section, we usually go into announcements, and I usually will ask anyone that is joining to let us know, number one, any upcoming business intelligence or analytics conferences or summits, or if you're looking to get hired, or your company happens to be hiring these type of positions, developers, business and data analysts, data scientists. These are typically our members. And so we typically will have that exchange at this point. So to get the conversation started with the conferences and summits, if you know of any summits, this is the one that we actually discussed at our last meetup, and there were a few others that were brought up as well. And this one happens to be virtual. It's happening later on this month. It's a Kafka summit, which is a middleware, and it's actually 100% virtual. And it's a 2-day conference right now, the way that it's announced. If you click through on this hyperlink, you actually can view the information about this particular summit and get more information on how to register. Yeah, it's been the website has been active, I think, for almost 3 months. So they're already have some people signed up that are registered to attend. And if you know of any other either business intelligence or big data analytics or data management conferences or summits, let us know, speak up. And also you can also type in the information. If you include a hyperlink, I can then share that with everyone as well. If you share that via chat. And by the way, the chat is available for everyone. So if you're joining us, you can chat in, and also I've sent some information for everyone via the chat. So does anybody have any conferences or summits that you're aware of that are big data, analytics, or business intelligence related? If you don't, that's okay. If you do, and you can get the information, just share that information via chat with everyone, and I'll be monitoring the chat window as well to make sure that we can view that information. And what about the other one? Anyone that is looking currently because you're looking for your next opportunity? You can speak up, and you can also share. I would recommend you share your contact, at least your LinkedIn profile, so that people can contact you directly if you are via the chat. So if you want to speak up, go ahead. If you're looking, and just tell us your name, and then you give us the link to your LinkedIn profile, and ask to follow up with you with specific opportunities if you have that. And also, if your company happens to be hiring any of these positions, also speak up or share that via the chat. I want to make sure that at least we have that opportunity to do that. And you should be able to share that information as well via the chat. So the other thing that I wanted to share is we also give an opportunity for any analytics platform vendors. This could be like a Tableau or a Salesforce or a Power BI, any one of those that wants to come in and do a demo. Usually we ask for those demos to be sponsored. And often these are the companies, the platform providers that actually would sponsor like a show and tell. And that's what we typically do, and they get preference. If you're interested in sponsoring or know of anyone who might be interested in actually doing a demo or a show and tell or presenting a white paper that has just been released, let us know, because we usually will talk about the possibility of booking a future meetup to actually host a demo or a show and tell or some sort of informational session with our members. So that's typically what we do. And if you have, if you know of anyone, this is actually, you can get more information if you click through this Learn More button, and that way you can get more information regarding how to actually set up an appointment to talk to us about the possibility of sponsoring a future meetup. So today's topic, as we all know, is how to stop confusing predictive, descriptive, and prescriptive analytics, because they all sound the same, right? They all are multi-syllable words, and they're all some sort of analytics. And we understand there's a lot of confusion because we see that when we are looking at information that is out there. And today's discussion is going to be hopefully what we would look at. Number one, what are some of the things that to keep in mind, and the history and the evolution of analytics. So with that, we're going to have also some not just definitions, but also examples of one versus the other, so that hopefully it'll be a much clearer. We'll put this in plain English, or maybe similar, we'll put it also in Russian as well. So today's conversation will be specifically on what is the difference between predictive, descriptive, and prescriptive analytics. And that's what we're going to be honing in today's discussion. So before I get started, I actually want to welcome and introduce my co-panelist, and that is Phillip Simulis. So Phillip, can you say hi and introduce yourself briefly?
Absolutely. Hi. So I'm good at following directions. Phillip Simulis, CEO at Simtelligent. And said simply, what we do is we help companies automate manual processes. And that means different things for different folks. Here in the DC area, we do have some federal clients. And what we're doing there is cloud integration, specifically with Azure and AWS, and automating their infrastructure. So building out templates that they can run to build out different pieces of their infrastructure. We also work in corrections, manufacturing, healthcare.
Perfect. And the name of your company?
Simtelligent.
Right. I can't remember if you said it or not, but I wanted to make sure you mentioned it. And also, Phillip.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing is that I want to mention is Phillip and I are co-organizers of this meetup, and normally we tag team the effort. Sometimes he leads, sometimes I lead, and since we've gone virtual, we actually have both been fortunate enough that we actually are both able to attend, which is actually a rarity sometimes, because I usually when normal times, if there's something going to be back to the normal time, I usually do quite a bit of traveling, and sometimes that requires international traveling for me. And that means that often I have to miss some of the discussions that go on. So typically, both Philip and I will be tag teaming, leading or at least being the host or co-host of whatever topic. So today's discussion, we're going to be breaking it down into briefly talk about the evolution of business analytics, and talk about also each one of these three different types of analytics, and focus on the order in which they were introduced over time as part of the evolution, and some of the pitfalls to avoid, hopefully, as well. And then we can get into Q&A as well. But as I mentioned before, be sure you can type in your questions at any time, because we'll be monitoring the chat window, and we can maybe get to the content in any of these sections if you type in your question as we're going through. So let's start with the evolution of business analytics. So evolution of business analytics, and this is actually the definition of business analytics, because those of you who may have seen different, there's a difference in analytics, data analytics, and business analytics. In this case, we're looking at the evolution of business analytics. And the definition of what is business analytics is any kind of metric, right, that is requires statistical analysis, maybe it's operational research methods and techniques and results, may involve artificial intelligence. It's not required, but now it's like everybody wants to do it. We'll talk about why. It may require also some sort of IT system or systems or data warehouse or multiple warehouses that may be scattered in the cloud. And management strategies for data, managing the data that you're collecting and where it's going, and how to back it up, in addition to make it available in real time so that you can make decisions, sometimes in real time, sometimes in near real time. And sometimes you're looking retroactively, sometimes you're trying to look forward, and sometimes you're trying to assess what is going on currently, right? And make decisions about your business that way. That is the whole point of business analytics, is the ability to collect the information, be able to quickly analyze it so that you can say, how are we doing right now, and what's next, and how can we prevent something, some bad thing from happening, that we lose our value or we causes a lot of damage in our business. If we can actually predict, we can actually start looking at how to work around some of those things that could happen very quickly. So this is basically the definition of business analytics. Now, when we talk about evolution, here's the evolution. And Philip, I don't know if you want to walk us through, how it started from descriptive all the way on to prescriptive and then beyond.
Sure. I'll do my best not to just read the slides to everyone. I know that's everybody's favorite thing.
I made it easy for you. You can go from left to right and go like this.
Yeah, I'll try to leave that monotone reading the slides. Nobody wants that after hours, right? I'll save that for my 10 o'clock meeting. But some of it to a degree is self-explanatory. Descriptive analytics. It's always great to look back and see what happened. But people have been doing that for a long time. Since in fact, actually, I think, Hector, we were talking about early Windows. Windows kind of 3.1 spreadsheet era. But also trying to figure out if people were using these on kind of like, say, Commodore 64 days or anything else, using technology just to see what happened. Of course, sometimes you don't always have the data to understand what happened, or you're not asking the right questions, so you don't always have a clear view. You're kind of skipping diagnostic to predictive. Predictive, just giving an idea of future events. Could be weather related, or it could be using in manufacturing instead of changing out a part every so many hours of runtime. Getting feedback from sensors to understand when you need to change it out, so that we actually save money and save labor costs. All the way up to cognitive. And I think we'll have a good description around that, and even some of the tools like ThoughtSpot. And I don't know if we'll quite get there tonight on tools, but building in machine learning and AI capabilities into your analytics, and especially taking in other data sources outside of your data sources, for say logistics, using, possible weather pattern information, or, something that's super interesting to me is with all the coronavirus information, taking in trends in coronavirus on how that may affect different areas of business.
Mhm. Yep. And one of the things that that it's amazing, because we've talked about this in previous meetups, but even the evolution of analytics, it started with descriptive, went on to diagnostic, and then moved on to predictive. And everybody right now is on predictive, right? And predictive means that it's now analysis with at least the first few algorithms that are artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? What's driving adoption of predictive is not so much the fact that that the actual analysis can be done in real time. The real issue is that there's so much data being created faster than ever before. However, the majority of that data is unstructured data. And unstructured data is, you can't analyze, right? You have to actually do a lot of tagging, a lot of curation, and what I would call distilling your data to actually make it ingestible by any kind of analytics platform. And really right now, the nightmare is there's so much unstructured data that is being generated across organizations today. And it's part of the big data challenge is the fact that the majority of the data that's being created is unstructured data, and it can't be analyzed as is. And up until a few years ago, the curation of data has been nothing but manual work, right? And so what you see today in most organizations, even though there's already predictive tools, and these are sort of like early version of tools that are out there already across the different analytics platforms, the challenge is that they're not very good at helping in figuring out how to automate the process of going from unstructured data sets to structured data set that can be ingested. So, Philip, I wasn't really sure if you have any perspective or some examples of the challenges of trying to move into the predictive range when you have so much unstructured data.
Yeah, I mean, that is a big challenge. It's a good question. Part of it is I lost my train of thought for a second, but being unstructured, what is a relationship? And sometimes getting data from from different unstructured sources. So really, one of the steps is going through and actually mapping it out. And a challenge in that is once you get it mapped out, if that unstructured data changes at all, that throws you for a curve, right? And now you're back to the mapping stage again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk about like some of the clients where you've gone in, and do they even know where their data is? It's up in the cloud, right?
Yeah, that's the golden term, the cloud. Yeah, I think that a lot of times people, most people I think know where the data is, but they don't really always know how to answer questions. And the best example I could give you is when we talked with a manufacturer, mm-hmm. and they wanted to kind of understand even just availability, kind of their OEE, the overall equipment effectiveness. And part of that is just being availability of the machines and availability of their staff. And we asked, would it be useful if we could tie into, for example, the timesheet system to understand who is available when they're working, and be able to point possibly some issues or failures to maybe, for example, there's an employee, maybe something goes down every time Bob's working, right? Because he's busy eating a sandwich in the corner. I don't know. But they were really surprised, like, wow, you could do that. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. But a lot of people don't, I guess that's where we challenge people sometimes is what kind of questions would you like to answer? And sometimes people get stuck thinking in a box of what they know that technology can do. things are changing so fast. My recommendation is don't worry about what technology you do. Assume it could do anything. What kind of questions would you like to know?
Yep. And so right now, if you look at the evolution, it started with business intelligence very early on, and majority of folks up until today, they've been doing all this different types of analytics, mostly using nothing but spreadsheets. Even as there are very evolved now tools that have become much simpler to use, that you don't have to be a data scientist, for example, to do the analysis, because that's all been automated, and even visualizations can be created very quickly with zero coding. That's what the stage of most analytics platforms today. Most people, when they're looking at data, and it has to be structured data, they're still using spreadsheets to do a lot of the descriptive, the diagnostic, the predictive type of stuff. And then you end up with lots of spreadsheets. And the problem is that trying to get them all to sync up is not very elegant way of doing predictive and analytics. And I think that's really the main challenge, is the fact that today there's so much unstructured data, and that needs to sort of like be improved.
One thing too, Hector, is that I find is that it really, what people are comfortable with and what people know. You've heard the saying before, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I most certainly wouldn't call any of my customers old dogs. But I will say some people are hesitant to learn new tricks. They are comfortable with spreadsheets, and they're really hesitant to move on to something that they don't know very well.
Yes, that's true. And so this is the evolution. And right now, if you look at where we're like in analytics, somewhere between 3.0 and analytics 4.0, given that analytics 1.0 was really more business intelligence, analytics 2.0 was more descriptive, 3.0 diagnostic, 4.0 predictive, and so on and so forth. So, and roughly in years, each one of these 1 dot, 2 dot are roughly maybe about 7 years apart. That's kind of like the life cycle of when you get a new version or a new iteration of analytics. And right now we're already in our 20, between years 21 and 28, so to speak. So somewhere in that range is since the inception of business intelligence, which was maybe about 25 years ago at the very early version. So business intelligence has now become business analytics, and now you have the different types of business analytics. So kind of to go back to, what is the difference between descriptive and prescriptive and predictive? Here's going back to that evolution. It starts with descriptive analytics. And here's the definition of descriptive analytics. It is a rule-based type of analysis, which means that someone has to program. In this case, coding may mean putting a function in a spreadsheet that allows you to take an average or take the mean or the standard deviation. All those things are mathematical analysis that can be done on a spreadsheet, but somebody has to put those functions in play once you have the data in your spreadsheet, right? So it's a rule-based, and it could be a macro that on a spreadsheet. It could be more sophisticated than that, because you can now have code that is very meant to run in almost real time, and all you need at that point is to feed in your data in real time, and you see the visualizations change in real time. And that's what most analytic platforms are doing now, but they don't require any coding. You pick the visualization and it changes as long as your data set is being streamed in real time. It's used to process data into results that are readable at a glance, which means a dashboard of some sort, right? Not just a single view graph, but lots of view graphs on a single screen, or maybe multiple screens with different sorts of graphs that give you the visibility into all of your entire operations. That's typically what descriptive analytics provides. It's basically, what is happening right now, and is it the right direction? Here's an example, right? Ice cream. Everybody knows ice cream, so we picked something that you can find. So descriptive analytics can tell an ice cream vendor, so you can make that Baskin Robbins or your favorite ice cream place. It could be a local place, but it allows the vendor to start looking at not just how much ice cream is being sold, but the flavors and which flavor is the best selling flavor in that particular store, and look at that over time and start looking at ranking and percentages of the flavors and the size from, if you typically might have 5 different sizes from, the extra small to the medium to the large and extra large, and all those are priced differently. You can start tracking all those things, and you can start now creating a dashboard that allows you to have a daily accounting of what your sales are, and then you can start figuring out, are we doing it right? How we compare to the same day last year? You can start creating those type of analysis to get more sophisticated in the way you want to operate your business. So it allows the businesses to start optimizing, and in this case, you're tracking sales of ice cream, right? And that's what descriptive analytics would do for anything. In this case, we're talking the product is ice cream. Now, the definition for predictive, and predictive is when you now start predicting what's about to happen next given the current situation and what just happened a few moments ago, right? And you might have to maybe go back to the last 2 months. Sometimes you're also looking retroactively to same time last year. At the same time, you're looking at the last 3-month average compared to where's the trend. Is it going to go up, the same, or down? And always you're concerned that you want to prevent that down, especially if this down is your sales, right? Because you want to maintain even if you're going sideways, you want to maintain your sales revenue or grow your sales revenue. Taking a dip that is unpredictable, or taking a dip where you could have done something about it, that's what most businesses are trying to prevent, right? So they're really concerned about, are sales going to now go take a dive for some reason, and what can we do to actually prevent that from happening, right? That's what predictive analytics is. So predictive is saying, given your current situation and what just happened based on all the trend analysis that you've done of previous data, as far back as you can, sometimes it's years, sometimes it's decades, depending on the business, what's about to happen, what can you do to prevent that from happening? That's predictive. And predictive, going back to the ice cream case, it's about looking at the macro level, looking at the climate. And the climate may change for one region in the country compared to a different region. And from your previous sales data that you can sell a lot of ice cream when it's really hot. You don't sell very much ice cream when it's cold, right? And sometimes you don't control the weather, but you can at least look at the seasonality just based on the changes in the temperature and maybe even the humidity in your location. And that changes store by store. At the micro level, you can also look at even finer data for that particular location and start putting together predictive analytics that shows how your sales may decrease when it's raining and may increase when it's really hot and sunny. Because everybody wants ice cream when it's hot and sunny, right? Everybody goes out and wants to be by the lake with an ice cream cone, right? So that's what you want to start predicting, because then at that point you can start looking at when you expect sales to go down because of things you don't control, because no one controls the weather, at least not yet. And also allows you to start looking at, location by location. If you know that rainy days reduce your sales, maybe you start looking at, the reason why some locations, when they're in a place where it has a lot of rainy days in any given year, why those sales are down below another location that has 0 rainy days or almost 0 rainy days throughout the year, and they're mostly hot throughout the year, because those are probably the best selling stores, and that could be around the Southwest of US, for example. Whereas if you go to the Northeast or the Northwest, those you have rainy days and you have seasons, and your sales are not going to be up as much as in other regions. And now you can start correlating things that you don't control and figure out, that you're not going to have the same you're not going to be measuring every single store the same way, just because weather is not the same throughout the market where you operate. And that's what predictive analytics can tell you. And based on that, once you understand that, you can now set more realistic metrics, given that you know the average number of rainy days, the average number of days that you are above a certain temperature that, entices people to buy ice cream, versus the ones that most people, at least the average people, just don't even want to consider buying ice cream. And then you can staff accordingly as well. You can control your supplies and also control your staffing once you know that demand is bound to go down, because you're not going to have full staff throughout the year. You de-staff as needed, and that's the way you set your schedule ahead of time for the year. Philip, I wasn't really sure if you have any other examples of predictive analytics.
Sure. I mentioned manufacturing earlier, and this one was always kind of interesting to me, honestly, because it was a real simple solution. I hesitate to even call it predictive analytics, but it does count. Mm-hmm. And it was with a company that, it wasn't us, but it was a company who helped Harley Davidson, the motorcycle company, if nobody knows what they are. And the challenge that they had is that in their painting area, they would have a fan belt that would break in their hood. And it was basically the hood that sucks out the exhaust fumes. And so what that meant is they would have unplanned downtime where they couldn't paint, and they would have to call somebody that could come in and replace the belt. So what they found out they could do is put in a sensor and predict, essentially, with relative certainty, when the belt would break. And really, I mean, honestly, the technical solution was that it was detecting the vibrations, and when the frequency changed to a certain level, they knew that meant that the belt was soon to break. But it saved them a lot of money. Anytime the manufacturers have unplanned downtime, they're really losing. So that's kind of a practical example.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And sometimes, it's the ability to just be able to look at those trends that sometimes your fix may not be that expensive, right? That's the beauty of predictive analytics. Right. And sometimes the solution to solve your problem, when you're thinking outside the box, you're now looking exactly as to how to do it proactively to reduce your unplanned downtime and only do the swap proactively during planned downtime, which, most environments do have planned downtime, and you take care of maintenance issues and also proactively do replacement before there's a failure, and then you have to incur unplanned downtime.
Right.
So moving on to prescriptive analytics, and prescriptive analytics is Simtelligent's definition. So Philip, I'll let you talk to it.
Okay, sure. There was a little bit of lag on my side, and
can you see it?
Yes, we have some hashtags in here. Yeah, I can see it now. I was just looking at the hashtags because we did put it on LinkedIn. Basically, it builds on top of predictive analytics. So prescriptive analytics provides the advanced predictive capabilities using AI and machine learning. For us, the one thing we've seen is the benefit being that it prescribes best possible actions in the case of manufacturing to reduce downtime, optimize performance, and improve quality. And so really it's giving you something that, to take action on. Not only will something happen, but here's what you can do to resolve that issue. And that becomes really huge, especially in a general supply chain and logistics environment.
Yep. Thank you so much. And here's the my definition of prescriptive analytics, which is I just took it from.
Are we going to take a vote? Do we want to take a vote to see which one people like better?
Oh, you're on. Okay, so let me finish this, and you guys can vote. So here's my definition. Prescriptive analytics is newer, as we mentioned. It was actually in the middle. So, and that's what everybody's focusing on right now. It's a big trendy thing. As a matter of fact, when you're looking at the hashtag for predictive, Right now, it has the most amount of followers on LinkedIn, the hashtag predictive analytics. But the one that offers even higher business value, that is a reality today, it's prescriptive analytics. And if you look at the number of followers of prescriptive analytics on LinkedIn, it is much lower because everybody's so focused on predictive, trying to make it work right now. And very few people, only the digital leaders that I would call companies that are organizations that are leading in digital transformation, are actually already exploring and effectively using prescriptive analytics to even get even more higher business value. And that higher business value turns into much higher profitability of those digital leaders compared to everybody else in the same industry in that market. And that really is the promise of prescriptive analytics. It's right now, it's very trendy thing to be talking about predictive analytics, but the one that has the highest value proposition for any organization is actually implementing prescriptive, because prescriptive tells you, recommends and makes suggestions. It's like having your own little expert system or your little, mini me bot telling you, hey, this is about to happen based on what I'm seeing. Wake up and do something about it, right? And that could be anyone in the business, right? It could be an operator in a manufacturing environment, or it could be, somebody who's actually doing fulfillment and says, hey, we're about to run out of packaging and you have lots of orders still to fulfill. Those are the kinds of things that you can start getting into prescriptive. And either way, prescriptive is about reducing unplanned downtime. It's very similar to what Phillip was saying, but it's also about making sure that you're eliminating any inefficiencies in your business and basically boost your operational efficiency across different business functions within any organization. And for that reason, right now, your organizations are trying to deploy it across all what they would call their core business functions to try to do this and have a higher operational efficiency across the critical business, the core business functions that they want to focus on. So that's my definition. So having said that, here's definition number one, Simtelligent. And here is definition number two. If you can type in the chat, just say, hey, I like Simtelligent or I like Hector's method. Just type it in the chat. And you can do it anonymously if you want.
Can I ask you a question, Hector,
Yes.
or would you rather we wait to the end?
You can ask your question. Go ahead.
In the other definition of prescription analysis, it cited using machine learning and or AI. However, in your description seems broader as to what analytics may be used. For example, I don't think there's a lot of machine learning presently that would make a specific recommendation to lower prices to increase sales. A person would have to formulate that scenario and then maybe test it out in machine learning. But the machine learning is not just going to sua sponte say, why don't you lower prices?
That's exactly right.
I don't think.
That's exactly right. So the issue is that if you think that prescriptive has to be done only with AI and machine learning, they're not mature enough. Those technologies today are not mature enough, right? Which means that AI is really A with a little I, not capital I, but little I, right? They're just somewhat intelligent, not fully an expert system. And what you really need is to have an expert, and an expert can work with a data scientist to create algorithms that are not necessarily AI algorithms, but they are algorithms that say, here's what, statistically speaking, we can actually start creating this model of the business, and it's a predictive model. And over time, that model can become more and more well-refined. And that's what prescriptive analytics needs, really. It's that accurate model of your business or of each and every business function, and keep in mind the interdependency across all the business functions of that organization. So prescriptive does not need necessarily AI or machine learning, but it does require experts with years of experience. So in those cases, maybe a very expensive person that has the experience can be a consultant, or it can be an insider that is an architect working with a data scientist to actually get working algorithms and code in the algorithms.
Right.
That's
the algorithms to test out the scenarios. Yeah, you get a domain expert.
yes.
Oh, great. For that reason, I vote for your definition, Hector,
all right.
because I think it's broader and, doesn't limit it to AI and ML. So
Thank you so much.
And by broader, do you mean watered down?
No, I mean that it scopes out more appropriately.
No, I'm just having fun.
Good try, Phillip.
Fun here.
I thought you wanted to do the great debate, so you make a good point. But by broader, I mean that it would include the role of domain experts that I didn't see in your definition, Phillip. Sorry.
Got it.
Fair enough. I appreciate the feedback.
Now, does anybody want to speak up for that you picked Simtelligent's definition and wants to speak up besides Phillip?
Hi, this is Irene.
Irene.
I've been taking different analytics courses, and I mean, you have a model for the machine learning, and it's little by little. It's like showing a child how to walk.
Exactly.
So you put in the steps, and eventually, I mean, the model has to be trained over
Yes.
and over and over until you get what you want.
Yes.
So
that's correct.
That's the idea.
Yep. And in reality, what you need to actually maximize business value, you can't do it in baby steps, right? Baby steps would only get you, very little to a very little increased value in business value. What you really want is somebody who can be a marathoner, right? Even better, who can go on a long marathon that is also a steeplechase, because that's what business does, right? You gotta, once you see the obstacle, you gotta figure out how to work around it to continue, going in the direction that the business wants to go. And that's what you want. You want somebody who's really good at working around unforeseen obstacles and that can just jump through or, dive in and continue going in the direction that the business wants to go and do it no matter what, right? Just continue to run or continue to go as fast as you can to maintain that operational efficiency highest. And it's hard to do when when you have a recommendation, an expert that is just taking you through baby steps, when you really need to be accelerating sometimes, and sometimes you need to turn, sometimes you need to decelerate and then accelerate as soon as you see the bend that you're actually getting around the bend from your obstacle.
Yeah, but then also you can use agile. I work for Verizon, and I believe in agile and sprints and continuous improvement. You do a prototyping, so you can use a little bit, to do your training. You cannot go from 0 to 60 like an Italian car, but you can just, I don't know. I think everything is gradual. It's like a person learning, when I started my MBA, finance was like Chinese, but eventually, I got it, So I think all this AI and machine learning, they have a potential like quantum computing, but right now I still in the infancy, and people, you don't have trainers that they are really super, are very few. But I was studying also Amazon. Amazon has amazing capabilities that for your data, for all the different type of data, they can transform it. I mean, you have to pay for it. So as you said, coding is not going to be essential these days, If you know what tools and if you want to pay, Amazon has an incredible ecosystem.
Yes, that is true. And actually that's true of all the big 5 cloud providers. Phillip, I don't know if you have any other examples of other cloud service providers that you work with that have a more evolved AI and machine learning capabilities.
No, yeah, AWS, like Irene was saying, and Azure are really the two that we use, especially some of our clients. People tend to like AWS. Here in the DC area, Azure has a little bit more pull at the moment. Uh, but they've also really ramped up some of their machine learning AI capabilities in the last couple of years. I do know people who really like Google Cloud, and honestly, we just can't be experts in all of them at the moment, and so we picked the two leaders at the time.
Got it. Thank you so much. So I think that I heard 2-0. I don't know about you, Philip. In my favor on the definition.
Well, I believe you heard that. I don't know. Read the comments. There's at least one here. But I do know people who tend to hear what they want to hear. So
I see. So let's see. I'm looking at the chat. Yeah, I see some people that picked yours, and I think they picked it before they saw mine. I think there was the lag.
It's possible, man. It's possible. I think it was a pity vote.
Nice. So let's move on to the how prescriptive, and going back to the example of ice cream, right? So prescriptive, now you know your sales and that your tendencies that rainy days you tend to have, even if there are hot days, on rainy days, your sales go down because nobody wants to go out when it's raining. And those kinds of things, now that you have that available, your prescriptive analytics can now make recommendations. So let's say that your analysis says that now you're keeping track of the weather and your geolocation, and you know the average number of rainy days in a hot summer season and the number of cold days for that location. Now, to keep up on rainy days, what you can do is you can actually send personalized promotions on rainy days to upsell your most loyal clients. And that's what most vendors are doing today, especially those vendors that have a mobile app, which, by the way, if you love ice cream and you're a Baskin Robbins, if you like the brand, they actually have a mobile app, right? So in their mobile app, which you can install on your phones, they should know your location and give you at least a store near you. But also when it's about to rain, or they know their forecast of rain, the day before, they're starting to push out notifications outside the app to say, hey, you have a promotion, and you see a little Baskin Robbins logo coming up. You open up the app, and sure enough, now they're saying, hey, tomorrow come in at this time and you can get whatever, right? And really what it is most of the time they're upselling you, because you're there to maybe just buy an ice cream cone for you, but guess what, you walk out with two because you can, right?
Hey, one in each hand. I agree.
That's exactly right. and that's what happens. For most vendors, knowing these things ahead of time, they can now start working on things like promotions, loyalty programs, different kinds of rewards that they can start now saying, this reward is only available tomorrow or right now. If you walk in between these hours, you can get your reward, right? And sometimes it's like 2 times or 4 times. And usually those can be pushed, especially when you have a mobile app. That's basically upselling, right? And that's what most people are trying to get into prescriptive. And this includes all sorts of different types of retailers, which ice cream places are a form of retail. And it goes across all types of retailers, because most retailers, this is why they're trying to get into prescriptive analytics, to figure out how to still maintain some sort of revenue, whether you're buying on the mobile app or online, and you can choose to either pick up at the store or have it delivered, right? Those are the different revenue streams that you can actually start pushing personalized promotions and loyalty and rewards to actually incentivize sales. And that's really the value of prescriptive. So prescriptive right now is emerging faster than than the predictive analytics. But these are the questions as to most organizations are doing it to answer any of these questions. When this happens, what should we do, or what should we tell our workers to do to prevent any negative or any dip in operational efficiency or a dip in revenue? And what do we do to make this specific action happen? So sometimes you may need to have special procedures, and sometimes you have to train your employees, your workers, on, and you can actually, once you train them, all you do is recommend saying, oh yeah, now you need to make sure you smile and greet everybody when they come in, or, you know, so things of that nature that make changes in the way you are converting customers and maintaining customer satisfaction and customer loyalty up as high as possible. Philip, I wasn't really sure if you have anything to contribute regarding prescriptive analytics or any examples.
You know, I really don't, you know, other than, you know, I'll give you an example. In one area that I even personally struggle, and I think, you know, I've talked about this before in a case of, like, let's say AI. Some people, you know, they kind of tout their AI platform. And when I've kind of asked more detailed questions, what I really find out is really a series of if-else statements and, you know, saving some preferences. And to me, that's not AI. We've been doing that forever.
Mm-hmm.
One thought on prescriptive analytics that we were talking with a prospect about is they were involved in hauling, basically, if you're building a neighborhood or subdivision, you have to dig out, you know, foundations. Contractors would call this company to come haul away the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a haul on certain days, and we had asked, what if you use multiple data sources, for example, you know, weather data, weather prediction data, to actually make decisions? To me, that would kind of involve also prescriptive analytics.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up deciding not to go forward with it, but, you know, they thought it was a great idea. I mean, even though they didn't do it. To me, that would be another use case of prescriptive analytics in a real world scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so that basically is, I think by now we've gone through all three definitions. We also talked about the evolution. And we talked about that prescriptive is kind of like in the middle, because if you go back to that chart that talks about the evolution, I'm seeing if I can just type it in. Oops, I typed it into the chat instead of my laptop here. Here we go. Going back to the evolution, right? We talked about prescriptive. Well, we didn't talk about cognitive, and because cognitive right now is just basically mostly fiction today, right? I think there's maybe one vendor that's talking about cognitive. Philip, I wasn't really sure if you're familiar with anyone else besides IBM. Talk about cognitive analytics.
Like you said, you know, being, you know, true cognitive, right? You know, ThoughtSpot is one I think that is definitely one to keep an eye on. You know, the founders from there, and we've actually seen them here with Business Intelligentsia, right? They've actually come out and presented their tool. We liked it well enough that we became partners with them because it really fit into our overall mission of how we try to help people. Mm-hmm. And you know, the founders there actually came out of Google, so I would recommend anybody here check it out and keep their eye on them for the future.
Did you say that was SoftSpot? SoftSpot?
No, ThoughtSpot. Like if you think about something.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll type it into the chat so you have it, and you can actually find them because they have their the website. You can find it, and there are some digital leaders already tinkering with a ThoughtSpot because they're actually getting a lot of traction because Walmart is using it along with a few other retailers, and cognitive is really leapfrogging prescriptive, and most everybody right now is still tinkering with predictive analytics. So with that, I'd like to at least ask if there's any other questions, because I think we're in the period. I want to move forward. I'm trying to figure out what slide number I was at. And as we are waiting for questions, or I want to say that we actually have talked about COVID-19 portals. These are the ones that are out there. And actually, Phillip, in one of previous meetups earlier this year, put together this particular portal that you can reach through this particular URL. These hyperlinks are, you can click through and see that there's one from University of Maryland, and there's also a social distancing scoreboard from Unicast, and you can actually start looking at how people are looking at maybe measuring how much social distancing there is actually, and what happens when people are too close to each other versus far enough away, at least a certain distance minimum, that you actually are minimizing any kind of transmission or infecting from anyone that may be either symptomatic or asymptomatic, that is, COVID-19 positive. So just here for your reference, but also for further reading.
I just want to mention, we did pull ours down, so it's not live at the moment. If there was a kind of a demand of people wanting to see what we did, we could put it back up at the very top link.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we did take it down because we are a little bit picky about what meets our mission. So originally, we built this to be, politics free. No left wing, no right wing stuff. Here's just the data. But anymore, the data source has been corrupt politically, and we took that down because we couldn't find a true source that just reported the numbers only.
Yep. And to kind of put it into lame terms, I mean, what is a confirmed case? Here in US, we're so dyslexic that a confirmed case is different in California than it is in Maryland, than it is in state by state. Those rules of what is a confirmed case varies. In addition to, what is a confirmed death due to COVID-19, it varies state by state. And that's what, what we're saying is that no, state by state, we're not using the same ruler for all of US. Each state, it has its own ruler on how to measure confirmed cases and number of deaths and critically ill versus non-critically ill, all those things that they're tracking. And that's what anyone that's reporting is actually using right now, because each state is responsible for collecting their own data. And right now what we're seeing, the trend is most states are undercounting for whatever reason. They want to keep the economy going or blah, blah, blah. All of these things are only just making it worse for all of us who really want to get accurate data. We're finding that, it's actually getting worse, not better over time. And it's sad to see, but, this is what happens when everybody's using their own different ruler when they're all part of the same place that should be tracking things to prevent things and try to get consumer confidence and everybody else back up. Right now, I think it's only causing confidence to go even lower, which is not necessarily good for productivity. And also, the other thing is that we also have additional references that talk about the 3 different types of analytics, and you can actually just click through. These are all hyperlinked. As I mentioned earlier, you're going to get access to the entire slides that we talk about here. And then here is our contact information. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, or you can also contact us via email or follow us on Twitter. These are all our things. And also Simtelligent's website is here as well. And this is all information. And at this point, we're ready for any questions if you have any questions. So did you see any questions? I haven't seen any, but I
didn't see any.
Irene passed on the information for Johns Hopkins. So can you talk about, because you were using Johns Hopkins to regenerate your data, right, for your portal, Phillip?
Yeah. Well, it was in part coming from Johns Hopkins, which was a combination of data coming from CDC, including some other foreign health sources as well, some of the Chinese health sources and Korean health sources, and European. But yeah, one of the primary sources was the data compiled from Johns Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, too, by the way, that was an unstructured data source. So there was a challenge of taking that data and massaging it and making it usable, making it relatable. And like I said earlier in the meeting, and it wasn't even about this data set, they did change their data structures. It seemed like every week or two they're adding new columns, and I mean it's great to have more data, but they don't notify anybody, and so you have to stay on top of it on a daily basis to make sure everything is getting imported properly.
So you couldn't really automate because they were just switching without announcing any change in schema, and then that was causing problems when you were trying to automate the process of ingesting the data.
I mean, it is true. We did automate though, so we did automate pulling it down, sanitizing it, merging it, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we did have to do a manual check to make sure that everything, and we did automate that overall check to say, hey, does things look the same as yesterday? And if they don't, notify us. But then we'd have to go in and find out what was different and then how we wanted to handle it.
Yep.
What about using SageMaker in AWS? It takes all kinds of data and it sorts it for you.
You said, and it does what for you?
Sorted.
Okay.
I mean, classifies it. It takes raw data, any type of data.
That's a
in
tool
SageMaker.
we haven't looked at specifically.
It's really cool.
No, I mean that sounds cool. It's definitely something I'm going to recommend. In fact, I'm going to take this link because we have a junior data scientist on our team, so I'm going to share this with him and have him look into it as well.
Can you type in the name of the tool, Irene, on the chat so we can get
Sure.
it? That'd be great.
Hold
If
on.
you have a URL to share, go ahead and share.
Well,
that
I can
on the chat.
look it up. Let's
Yes,
see.
that'll be great. That would be great. If you can, that would be great.
Hey, Hector, I'm going to put something in the chat too,
Yes.
just so I can be one of the cool kids here. I'm guessing that at the beginning you talked about upcoming events, and
Yes.
we don't have to go into it, but IoT Slam is having their. Normally we do this live every year, so this is the first year we have to do it virtually. So I just pasted. It's actually right before Arena's post here. I posted the link to it, where anybody could register if they're interested. They can go to the website, check it out, register, and get a full day of top industry speakers on IoT technology.
When is that happening?
Oh boy, I don't know. It's coming up. I thought it was the 16th, but I'm not sure.
Let me click through the URL and maybe it's there. See if I can.
August 19th.
August 19th, and that's a virtual event. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's fully virtual. A lot of these people, I mean, I know personally. I either typically speak at this event or MC it. Last year I MC'd it, and so a lot of these faces that are some of the top speakers, I know personally. So you're looking at VP from HP.
I went to the URL and I'm sharing it now. You should be able to see it on my.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just shared it a moment ago as well. IoTslam.com.
Okay, so this is the event that Philip just sent information on, and this is on August 19th. Is that what you said?
Yes. It's an all-day thing. So if you want to register, you can see the agenda and everything like that. If you can't attend, I mean, some people just kind of put it on in the background, and something I highly recommend.
Sounds great. And if you have any other conferences, summits, anybody else wants to share, go ahead and type that into the chat. We're going to be also sharing the file from the chat with everyone, so you can actually download it in case you want to capture some of this information that's here. You can either do it right now, or we're also going to be sharing the capture chat from today's discussion. And if you have any other questions, go ahead and type them in. At this point, I just want to make sure that we are getting to everybody's questions before we can, wrap up. So go ahead and type in anything, or you can actually, chime in on the audio if you want.
The only thing, if anybody's thinking about a question in the meantime, Nicole, if you're still connected here, I did reach out to you, and probably a lot of other people here on LinkedIn to connect. But Nicole, just looking at what it looked like you do, there might be room to talk outside of this presentation to see if there's room for collaboration.
Yeah, that sounds great.
If you want, here's Philip's information. You can take that. Also, Philip, maybe you can share your that information via chat, your email or your LinkedIn profile as well.
Sure.
I shared the short URL to my LinkedIn profile earlier, so you guys should have that from the chat.
And if anybody doesn't know, it took me many trials and errors to figure out how to type in multi-line on Zoom. I was always yeah, I was always that guy. Like people are like, what is he doing? For me on Apple, it's control enter to get a new line.
There it is. So there's Philip's contact information. He just sent it via chat, and I'm gonna be also typing mine as well, just so you have what's in the slide, and you don't have to write it down.
Yeah, and I appreciate too. We have some good information here in the chat. I like some of the collaboration from Danae and from Irene. So I appreciate this information from AWS. So I like the contribution from the community here. This is good.
Thank them for the votes as well. How much did you pay them?
Hey, Danae will be getting a gift card here very shortly.
Or ice cream?
Hey.
All right. Well, I think with if there's no other questions, we can actually. I want to officially close the program. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the program, and we look forward to seeing you at our next meetup. We'll be announcing our next topic probably in a couple of weeks or so. And if you know of anyone who's interested or wants to present, ask them to reach out to us. And I am going to be reaching out to Ron and Kathleen, by the way, Danae. So I have them in mind to actually do something. I think they just simply published recently something about the state of AI. And I want to actually ask them if they can add that in addition to adding the state of analytics as well. And I think this could be a collaborative, discussion on both AI and analytics. So we'll keep you posted, and feel free to share anything else via the chat. We're going to continue just keeping the meeting open for some time, but just we're going to just go into networking now. So we'll keep it open for a few more minutes, and feel free to open up your microphones if you want to talk, and we'll keep this open for a few more minutes just in case you guys want to share and exchange contact information via the chat line or via audio. And so thank you very much for attending. And Philip, thank you so much for also being a panelist today and doing this discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. Thank you as well.